to die for the faith, and instead he got sick. Well, I mean, martyrdom is one thing, but some unknown illness that you can't even get off the boat, now that's sort of humiliating, I would think.
So the friars that he was with in Morocco put him back on a boat to go back to Portugal to get better, because he was not going to preach in Morocco. That was obvious.
And instead of going back, a terrible storm landed him on the coast of Sicily, where he'd never been. He probably didn't speak the language, and more or less washed up on shore.
God wanted him to do.
It was at that point that he began to question whether his desire to go to Morocco was from the Lord or was it from Anthony. And I'm sure it didn't happen in an instant. It probably happened during this long voyage and the storm-tossed seas and so on, as he was wondering, what did he do wrong? A lot of us get to this point where we think we're following God's will, and God keeps closing doors. Sometimes he pushes us down the steps, Not only does he close the door, we fall down the steps behind us, And we're saying, what's happening? Why, here I thought I was doing this, and I thought you wanted me to do this, and it's like, it's not working.
There are many losses with which we have to deal in our lives, and I believe that Anthony lived those losses, but he also found ways to respond positively in those areas of loss in his own life.
So Anthony came to the point of saying, okay, you take the reins now. Instead of me taking the reins, I'm going to let you take the reins. The idea was that I have to empty myself, of my self-will, of my desires, of my materialism, of my sins, of everything that's worldly in me, in order for God to come in and fill me up. If I'm all filled up with me, God can't come in there. And that was a courageous decision, because he really didn't know what was going to happen.
While recovering in Messina, Anthony hears the news about a gathering of all the Franciscan friars with Francis of Assisi.
He had lost a lot, but now he could actually meet the founder of the order to which he felt called.
And so Anthony sets off by foot in the company of other friars on the long journey from Messina to Assisi.
So, over had to be many more chapter of Mass, all the friars of the order together. So he was one of many, and this is the point. He did not want to stand out in this crowd, because he had been seeking a life of quiet. If he couldn't be a martyr, he would be a hermit.
Assisi is an ancient city dating back to around 1000 BC. Today, it's famous as the birthplace of St. Francis, the son of a wealthy middle-class family who founded the Franciscan religious order in 1208.
So he gets up to this meeting of all of these friars, and at the end of the gathering, different friars were sent to different places, and they had their assignments and so on. And as the friars are departing, Anthony doesn't have any place that he's been assigned, because none of the provincials, none of the superiors in the order wanted to take him, because first of all, he couldn't speak the language very well, and he was very sickly and frail. They thought that this guy's just going to be a drag, why should I take him? Somehow somebody finds out that he's a priest, and there's a friary, a little hermitage. The Franciscans lived in many little hermitages, and they were very poor places where they lived in caves or like little huts made out of wood and sticks or stones or something, very small places. But there's a little hermitage way up in the mountains that had brothers living in it, but there was no priest. So these brothers had to go down into the town several miles to go to Mass. And so when the provincial found out that Anthony was a priest, he said, oh, well, I'll send him up there because he can say Mass for these brothers.
Although the original hermitage no longer exists.
Oh, this is my calling. I've got it now. I've clinched it. He had a little cave that he could retreat to every day, and he had many menial tasks that he did. But the story is told that all the friars were invited to an ordination, but somehow or other they hadn't designated the person who would give the sermon or the after-dinner remarks.
The ordination at Forlì was also attended by a group of Dominican friars, also known as the Order of Preachers.
The Dominicans were well trained in theology, in scripture, and so on, and so they gave much more elaborate, much more intricate homilies. And so the Franciscans assumed that the Dominicans were going to provide the preacher for this ordination. But the ordination was at a Franciscan friary, so the Dominicans assumed that the Franciscans were going to provide the preacher because it was at their place. You know, why should the Dominicans preach at somebody else's place? When they got to this ordination, they found that nobody was assigned to preach. They called him up to preach, and he starts preaching this homily that on Christ became obedient unto death, even to death on a cross. It's beautiful topic that the bishop told him to talk on, and he starts preaching, and everybody's like floored by his preaching.
He was brilliant. And all the other fellows were sitting around thinking, we didn't know this about you. We did not realize that you had anything to say. We thought you were hiding out.
The bishop said, oh, he must be a wonderful, asset to your province. And the provincial said, I didn't even know he could preach. I mean, he's only been serving in the kitchen and saying mass with the brothers, and but we got to use this guy. So that's how they took him out of that hermitage and began to send him around to preach, and that actually started his preaching mission.
Here is a loss and a finding. He lost his life of solitude because they said, Anthony, you have got to go on the road, take this show on the road. You are a great preacher, and we are in the midst of a period of heresy here in the church where many people are following a path that will not lead to their spiritual freedom. And you can influence that. You can help people